From Division I to Division III, it's time for College Sports Weekly with Don Macholis and Dan Underberg on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
So better than mine. I got a packed house yelling, bring 'em out, bring 'em out. I'm a hot girl selling, bring 'em out, bring 'em out. All the dope boys yelling, bring 'em out, bring 'em out. Cut the black day yelling, bring 'em out, bring 'em out. Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
All right, welcome in. It's College Sports Weekly. We are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Don Macholis, along with the professor Dan Underberg, Charlie Usen on the ones and twos, guiding the mothership for the next 120 minutes as we get to the world of college athletics. Guys, we're under 50 days, roughly 5 weeks away from week 0, which again, to me, is the stupidest thing on the face of the earth that we call it week 0. Like, if you're playing a game, why is it week 0? Anyhow, we're getting closer to the start of football season. So we'll talk some Badger football here in just a moment. In the second segment, we'll move into a little college hoops as Marquette is headed north to the Great White North. They're heading up to Canada to take advantage of some international rules, shall we say, within the NCAA to get life rolling with the basketball program. The Badgers, their preseason, I'll call it, ranking came out within the Big Ten. We'll get into all of that. We'll get into some headlines. Hour number 2. We'll talk about the SEC. Why? Because they're the precursor to the Big Ten's media week, and they drop some, I can't call them bombshells, just the continuing narrative that we hear coming from the SEC. And then we'll talk with Alex Tomter. He's the head baseball coach at Bryan and Stratton. So we'll get a chance to talk to Alex, talk some Bryan and Stratton College athletics as we make our way to handing out shovels. And then before you know it, this fine program comes to a conclusion. But with that, let's start talking about some Badger football, because the worldwide leader in sports, not a good week for some people at the worldwide leader of sports.
I've had a rough
not
week.
just some people, a lot of people.
Yeah,
It's like the Olympics. Every 4 years, they have to go through some kind of purge. Yeah.
That's a great way of saying it. As put out their prediction as far as the Wisconsin Badger football program. So they ran it through, the old Tandy 64, the old Radio Shack computer.
You bet.
That probably is still up and running in someone's basement somewhere. But nonetheless, came through and did some predictions as far as each and every game for the Badgers. And I know Rami in 9 to Noon talks about this being the time period of lists, right? You're kind of in this dead period waiting for the Packers to up their game as far as training camp goes. Same thing with the Badgers and all of college sports. So now everybody's generating lists and predictions and so forth. So why be any different? Let's just go ahead and take the prediction monitor that ESPN.
Creativity of the show.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's the national forum that we existed. So looking at the Wisconsin football season, game by game, let's just run it down as far as what the ESPN Tandy 64 projection monitor states it as. And they start off with Wisconsin and Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a 93% chance of victory. But Daniel, with that 7%, we're saying what?
So there's still a chance.
There's still a chance.
Still a chance.
Attaboy, there's still a chance. That's the way it's got to go.
I get a kick out of, it's a neutral site game. Please.
Yeah, I know.
No. So Wisconsin's gonna get thrashed.
Is 7 higher or lower than you expected for that percentage? Lower.
Yeah, I thought it'd be, we might get to double digits.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd give them like a 12% chance or so.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
7's kind of mean.
Disrespectful a little bit, maybe.
A little bit, yeah. Especially when it's a neutral site game in Wisconsin.
Is it really? I mean, I don't know. They
got the new helmets done.
I'm gonna look at
They're
it.
They're gonna look really cool.
The red and white glasses, the rose-colored glasses. As a Badger fan, I'm hoping it would be higher. I think even 12 would be a little bit low. But the reality is you're playing Notre Dame. Yeah, I know, the neutral site thing. Like, come on. It's like when the Badgers are playing at Fiserv. It's a neutral site. Okay,
right.
Whatever.
Right.
We'll roll with that. It's a technicality. All right, we get into week 2 and week 3. They predict that the Badgers have a 99% chance of winning against Western Illinois and a 94.7% chance of winning against Eastern Michigan. Both of those, I have said on our fine program, to me, are huge games as far as this Badger season goes, because as the computer states, there's a very, very, very high probability that they should win these games. But we also know against directional teams, Professor, what they've done. They've won, but it hasn't been convincing.
No, not at all.
And I think that's where my trepidation lies going into this season, is I want to see them dominate against these two directional schools that even the Tandy 64 thinks they should absolutely come out victorious, and go ahead and get us again excited about what this season could be.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at these first 3 weeks, if Wisconsin is absolutely going to lose in week 1, then you need these 2 games to actually build up some momentum again and get people excited about your program. And the only way you're going to do that is if you win well. Okay. And if you do what you did the last 2 years, which is kind of squeak by, you're down at halftime or you're only up by 3 at halftime and you don't look good, you're going to lose a lot of faith in those first 3 games, much less those next 2. Right. So it's an important 2-game stretch, and it sounds stupid, but I'm with you on this one. The way they've performed during the directional schools early in the season has really, in some cases, done more damage than later on some of the losses that they've had.
Absolutely. All right. So then we get back into the Big Ten before they get a bye. And in week 4, they're on the road at Penn State and then home against Michigan State. So on the road, Charlie, at Penn State, they give Penn State an 80% chance of winning.
That feels a little high.
Thank you. Okay,
I think Penn State doesn't come into the season and strike fear into me at all, if I'm being that honest. I think they'll be fine because it's Penn State. They're able to draw that kind of recruitment towards them. But at the same time, it's a new coaching staff. It's a whole new situation for this school and university to be a part of. I think this is very much a game the Badgers could come out and upset Penn State easy.
That's where I lie on that particular one, Professor, because of the fact of what Charlie was alluding to. It's a new coaching staff. I get it. It's on the road. I get you're going to Happy Valley, which is never an easy place to perform in. I just think giving Penn State an 80% shot of winning. Now, what we don't get are the lines, right? We don't know if the projection made it a 1-point victory, a 3-point victory, or a dominating victory by Penn State. We don't get that as part of the scenario as far as this thing was crafted. I agree with Charlie. I just think Penn State, even though they're at home, it's a bit high. I think if the Badgers can do what we're hoping for, and I want to go into this season being as optimistic as possible. I know. Well,
have you learned nothing as a Wisconsin sports fan?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. But I really think the Badgers have a better chance than what is projected here.
So what do you think it should be at? What do you?
I would, if it was sitting, let's say 70-30 or 75-25, I'd be okay. Now that percentage-wise, Dan, I get it. It's not that big of a difference, but looking at it, there's just something about the fact that Penn State has an 80% chance. I just think that's a little high. There's a lot of factors. Again, being at home for Penn State is one of them. It's a major factor. Just visually, when you first look at it, granted, I'm only talking somewhere between 5 and 10 percentage points, which isn't the end of the world, but it is from a fan perspective to look at it and say, no, I give my team a little bit better of a shot to roll into Happy Valley.
So it would sound better if Penn State had a 75% chance to win.
Yes. In my mind.
All right, great.
In my mind.
Hey, that's
in defense of the Badgers a little bit. ESPN has Minnesota only a 12% chance to win against Penn State later on in the season at Penn State. Northwestern, when Penn State goes Northwestern, they're giving them a 22% chance Northwestern to beat Penn State's only 77. So Are we
See?
worse than? Are they worse than Northwestern, really, or is it just because that's at Northwestern? But Northwestern doesn't have that much of a home field advantage, in my opinion.
Well, they've got the new stadium.
Well,
That's
They've got-
true
yeah,
too. Okay,
and
that's
are
a
they
good point.
opening at Penn? That's
what week do we know when
the new Ryan
Penn
Field.
State rolls into Northwestern?
That is week 5.
Which I
I
think
think is the first game,
either the
opening game.
first or
Yeah.
second game at Ryan Field,
Yeah.
which that new stadium looks
Beautiful.
spectacular.
Yeah.
Can't wait to take in a game down there.
Mhm.
But I listen, if you told me I got 75% chance of passing a test or a 25% chance, you know where I'm going with this. All right, week 5. Let's get off of that one before we bury it. Wisconsin, Michigan State. They give the Badgers a 69% chance of beating Michigan State. And again, for me, I almost find it hard to believe on the other end. I think Michigan State is going to be a much more formidable, he says 5 times fast on a Saturday morning, opponent than what they have been in the past, because I think Pat Fitzgerald rolling in there is going to kind of reset things as far as the Spartans go. I'm glad they believe we almost have a 70-30 shot at winning that game. I just think that percentage being flipped of what we were just discussing would be much closer than what it is.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think for Michigan State, this is, I think for both programs, but maybe more so for Michigan State, because they have the new coach, because it's at home. This is kind of a measuring stick game a little bit. You want to know that you're better than a team you're typically being compared to on the bottom half of the Big Ten.
Right.
So I think there's going to be a little bit more juice for Michigan State going into this game than there might be for Wisconsin.
And then, guys, it's 100% chance in week 6. We got the week off. That's 100% chance of winning that bad boy. Watch us blow it somehow. Somebody will get a free pair of
Quarterback's gonna
shoes
get
that
hurt
they
or
weren't supposed
something.
to.
Yeah, I guess it's gonna
Something
be-
happened on State Street,
Uh-huh.
and all you know what's breaking loose. But anyway, week 6, they have a bye. Then we go to week 7. It's Wisconsin at UCLA. And they give the Badgers a 55% chance of beating the Bruins at UCLA. Again, I have huge question marks because in my mind, UCLA, Charlie, is the sleeper of the Big Ten this year. I think, again, with the coaching change and what they're doing out there in California, I think UCLA is going to surprise some people, not to the level of what Indiana did 3 years ago when Cignetti rolled in there. But I think UCLA is going to be a much tougher opponent based upon some things as far as the transfer portal, coaching change, the whole 9 yards. But I like the fact that they believe Wisconsin's going to go to California and get the win.
Well, and I think that's the reason they're not going to get the win is because they're going to California. I think that's just the Big Ten West is so stupid. Having the UCLA, USC, Oregon, having these teams go across, I think it's very much the reason USC could probably blow their game against Wisconsin the next week because they're heading to Wisconsin, and that's just tough. Like that's just hard to do as a college student who's maybe not these guys, but in class all week and working on other things, doing other stuff. They're busy still, even if they're not only playing football.
Yeah, Charlie said when they're in class.
Yeah.
I said maybe not these
sorry.
guys. Maybe
I had a
not
laugh.
these guys.
I'm sorry, I had a laugh. We do everything online now, so okay.
But it's still you're putting a lot on your plate when you have that type of travel schedule for these student athletes, and I think that's going to take a toll. I think that's definitely going to be the case with the UCLA and USC games.
All right, so then we go to week 8, Daniel, and USC comes to Camp Randall, and they give USC a 76% chance of winning that game. This could be, as Charlie just described, I think an inverse type of situation where I could envision the Badgers going to UCLA and dropping one, and then having USC roll into Madison and the Badgers capitalizing on all the things Charlie just described, plus some weather. We got to be getting close to Halloween around that time as well. You know, things start to amp up here in the fair state of Wisconsin. I could see the upset there. So I could see back-to-back upsets. One where the Badgers drop one to UCLA, but take care of business at home against USC.
That would be a hell of a shift. It really would be. And I think for me to see that kind of an upset, you would have to see Wisconsin really begin to establish its running game again. Something that can, grind the clock down and get USC's offense off the field and just kind of control that tempo. I could see where USC walks in, feeling themselves a little bit and thinking that this is just a stop into bigger things when you go into Madison. So I get that. I am curious if USC has a bye right before this game, as Wisconsin does before they go to UCLA, which could help both teams, the bye before you get in there. So
USC does have a bye.
They do have a bye. So I mean, I would love to see Wisconsin beat USC. It's just kind
but they got Ohio State and Indiana right after that, so maybe they'd be looking past the Badgers, and then maybe that could help them.
Yeah, I mean that's a gauntlet right there. So yeah, you can see that happening.
All right, so then we go to Iowa, and Iowa has been given a 72% chance of beating the Badgers at home. I don't think there's really much to say other than it's my greatest, we'll say, tradition that takes place in all of college sports after the first quarter, waving to the kids up at the Children's Hospital there, which is right next to the stadium. Other than that, this is one I completely agree with as things move and shake at this point of the season, that Iowa again rolls over Wisconsin. Then it's Wisconsin home against Rutgers, and they give the Badgers a 72% chance of winning. Again, Dan, I'll agree with this one simply because Rutgers is one of those teams that seemingly starts every single year 4-0, and everybody gets excited about Rutgers football, and then the rug gets pulled out from under them, and then they just kind of meander their way to the end of the season.
It could be. I'm not too concerned about Rutgers, but again, it feels a little bit like a classic Northwestern game if Rutgers can pull them into the pit. Pull Wisconsin into the pit and just let them slog around in the mud a little bit, metaphorically speaking, and they come out the other end with a win. That wouldn't shock me, but I would see hopefully that Wisconsin has that win. I'm going to go back a week to Iowa.
Okay.
If Wisconsin has its running game going, and I know Wisconsin is at Iowa, I think it could happen. I think that could be a game that all of a sudden people start talking about Wisconsin again, if they're going to have the 8-4 season that people want them to have.
I'm going to try and give you the same look you gave me when we were talking about
fair.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And then we'll move on.
You did.
Charlie, can we check the water bottle on Daniel's side there, please?
It's clear liquid.
That means
you
nothing,
handed
Daniel.
it to him.
All right. Week 11. It's the Badgers at Maryland. It's a 53-46 divide as far as the percentages go in favor of Wisconsin. And everything you just said about Rutgers, Dan, is what I would say about Maryland. Maryland's one of those teams that just seemingly can't get over the proverbial hump, where they play decent football throughout the entire season, but always find a way to lose, as opposed to finding ways to capitalize on the opposing team's mistakes or turnovers or whatever the case may be. I would love to see the Badgers come away with one, but that's one where I really have question marks all over the place, where I think it could be a hiccup game and fall into the same fashion that you just described, as far as Rutgers goes.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And there have been plenty of times where you've watched a Wisconsin-Maryland game and you thought to yourself, I don't think they're going to pull it off, or Maryland walks in and just completely upsets you like they did a couple years ago, or maybe it was last year. I could see that happening. Maryland's just a weird football program in general. It seems like they have talent.
With their helmets.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Strange.
Yeah. It seems like they have some skill at some, wide receiver,
Right.
running back and quarterback, but they just can't, like you said, get over that hump.
Absolutely. Then we finish things out. Charlie, week 12, Purdue. It's a 61-38% advantage in favor of the Badgers. And this is one where I actually thought it would be higher.
That's what I was thinking.
Thank
When
you.
you
It's
started saying
Purdue.
it's 67, I was like, that's crazy. Purdue sucks, man. Like, if we're going to be completely honest, every other matchup that Purdue has is lower percentage than that. Again, going back to Penn State, their matchup against Purdue, they had Purdue at an 8% chance against Penn State. I feel like you would give a little bit more respect to the Badgers in that situation.
And I think, Dan, this is one of those cases where the past couple of years, the way the Badgers have performed, I think, even though it's supposed to be strictly analytic and all the other things, I don't know what they pour into the old Tandy 64 to come out with these projections, but based just on history, I guess I can understand why the Badgers get a little disrespected in a game against Purdue where you figure they should roll?
Yeah, you'd like to know the lytics in this one, like through the whole process. What are the things that they're measuring to come up with this process? Or is there an intern in there from Purdue going, no. And he's just fudging the numbers a little bit.
All right. And then week 13 to wrap up the season for the Wisconsin Badgers. It's a game at home against Minnesota, and they're given a 68% chance of beating the guys who row the boat on the other side of the river. I hope so, because I can distinctly remember 2 years ago standing in that cold the day after Thanksgiving, watching that Badger Gopher matchup and watching the Badgers essentially by the second quarter quit. Like they did not want to be on the field. And Minnesota did to Wisconsin what Wisconsin used to do to Minnesota, which was ground and pound, just run the morale right off of that sideline and dump off some passes when needed and just roll over the Badgers. I'm hoping that the tide is turned. See what I did there? Rolled the boat, tide turning. Come on, give me some love on that one. But I'll take
turn off his mic on that one, dude.
But I'll take the fact that they think the Badgers will run away with that one.
Yeah. Well, they're not saying run away. Okay. They're just saying win.
Listen,
okay.
68% on a test at high school. I was running away with that bad boy.
I think that's still an F if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I hope Wisconsin can turn that tide around and get that win, but sometimes these games get ugly, and you never know. And the reality is Minnesota is a team that really feels like it should walk in and beat Wisconsin right now. They have that juice. So hopefully this is the case. But again, now we're at the end of the season too, and this works for both teams, a lot of teams. Who's hurt? Someone's going to be hurt. Hopefully it's not a quarterback, that kind of thing. So I just, all right. I'm hoping.
Yeah. I mean, it's wishful thinking. So with all of that said, if we go strictly by percentage, Charlie, whether it's a dominating advantage based on the analytics or a slight advantage, you're looking at a team that could go 8-4 and win their last 4 of the season. Then you're looking at a team that retains its coach.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is Luke Fickell needs to win the games that he's supposed to win. Like we talked about, Western Illinois, Eastern Michigan, you have to win those games. I think Rutgers and Purdue, you for sure have to win those games, even if they're giving Purdue a better chance than what we think as well. I think Maryland, you probably have to go and win that game. I think Maryland's going to be a tough team and they're going to be scrappy. Minnesota, I think you need to win Minnesota too, if we're going to be honest. Yeah. That's a game where you constantly go into the end of the season. A lot of people lately, at least, have been grading the Badger season based off of that last game against Minnesota, and that if you lose that game, if you blow that game, it's going to be a problem. I think he has to go win the games that he's supposed to win as a coach, and he'll be fine. If he loses 1, 2, God forbid more than 2, then that's going to be a huge problem for him.
What's the what going around the horn? What's the upset win of the schedule? Which one? The upset win.
The schedule.
Wisconsin's
Charlie,
upset
you want to go first?
USC. I think that's going to be the one where the USC comes into town. Wisconsin's gonna show them that they're new. They're brand new.
All right.
I like that one because I talked about it earlier. For me, give me Happy Valley. Okay. Give me the Badgers going to Penn State. If they dominate week 2 and 3, like we hope, and gain some of what the professor loves to always talk about, which is momentum, right? We talk about momentum all the time. You dominate 2 and 3, play competitive in week 1 against Notre Dame at a neutral field, which we'll giggle about, I think, all season long until the game is played. But I'll take the Badgers at Happy Valley. Wow, that would be a huge upset to really get this team going and on a roll.
And I'm going to play roulette. I'm going to push all my chips on red, and I'm saying Iowa.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say Iowa. And what's my reasoning? I don't have any. I just think if Wisconsin can, again, if Wisconsin can do a Northwestern, pull Iowa into the muck for a game where the defense is able to stay stout, Wisconsin gets a couple breaks and can run a little bit, can just get, 130, 140 yards on the ground and just ground and pound a little bit, then potentially they're looking not at a 4-game win streak at the end, but a 5-game.
And here's the best thing about what you just said, Dan. You don't have any reason. You don't need to. Anybody who has rationale in July about what's going to happen in October and November, stop. because to your point earlier, Dan, you don't know who's going to get hurt. You don't know about weather in that time. There's so many factors that play into the game of football, like any other sport, that you can't predict. And so to sit here because guys were running around in T-shirts and shorts and helmets and looking spectacular doesn't equate to what's going to happen 5 weeks from now when we kick off week 0.
Keep going. Yeah.
So I completely agree with how you took it. I love the fact that we had 3 different spots where they could upset. And wouldn't it be sweet if they took all 3 spots going into this season? So that's a good thing. Listen, before we get to a break, our friend over there has got something.
Oh, I forgot about this. Yeah.
You can't forget about this, but he's got something going on.
So,
I want you all to listen for a moment because I want College Sports Weekly fans
tell you what.
to rally. I want you to rally. What's up?
This is a teaser. Can we come back from the break? I am completely unorganized.
Yes,
I've got
we can come back to
so
break.
when we come back from the break,
Okay.
we'll start off with that, and then
we'll jump into some
continue.
college hoops.
Yes.
Absolutely, we can do it that way. And we'll talk to the professor as he just teased us when we come back before we get into some college hoops. It's College Sports Weekly. We're live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, and we are powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
moment's gone.
Oh, no, it's not.
Here comes Speed Racer. He's a demon on wheels.
You gotta explain the story.
Is this for Tony Romo?
That wasn't even close. So we walked in this morning, and I said, I have no idea why, but I had the theme from Speed Racer in my head like an earworm, and I was going over and over and over again. So what does my good friend do on the other side? He tells you to play the theme, which is now
emailed me right before the show. I was like, hey, can you switch one of his theme songs?
You are busted.
I'm
like
looking
there
over
is
Charlie's
no
shoulder
tomorrow.
right now, and I'm watching this theme song like
I
the
watched-
the end.
So do you know Speed Racer?
I know the 2007 movie that they
Movie.
made that I
Okay.
saw with my dad, and that was it.
Oh.
They had a video game too that I played. That was fun.
Well, yeah, we.
I don't think I've ever seen this. version.
Okay, and if you watch it, Charlie, you're gonna roll your eyes like there's no tomorrow because the animation is so 68,
Oh,
somewhere
yeah.
around there. But as a kid, knowing that thing was going to be on like 10 minutes
Mhm.
after the bell rang
Right,
at school,
right.
sprinting
Yep,
home
absolutely.
to watch Speed Racer, Trixie, Chim Chim, his brother Racer X.
Racer X.
His long
So
lost
is his
brother.
name Speed Racer? Like
That's his name.
That's his name. Yeah,
His
that's
brother
right.
is just named Racer X.
Yes, that's how he's referred
That's
to.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
awesome.
nobody knew it was him.
right.
Nobody
No,
knew.
he had a mask on.
Yeah.
How would you know?
Couldn't tell.
Oh my
And
gosh.
anyway, the Mach 5.
Yes.
That was everybody's first car.
everybody's
You're gonna have
first car. You drew
Yeah.
them like there was no tomorrow in
Yep.
class instead of doodling. Who knows what they doodle these days? We were drawing the Mach 5. Absolutely. And after the dissertation on Speed Racer, we are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. This is College Sports Weekly, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Don't forget, you can follow us on all our social media platforms at Wisconsin Sports Radio or anywhere with the Odyssey app. If you want to join the conversation, throw us a text at the Nicolay Law text line at 414-677-1250. All right, I caught my friend off guard, and that's on me, but he's getting ready to participate in a walk for a charity
Mhm.
that I think, as our listening fan base, I would love to see as many College Sports Weekly listeners jump on board and donate. So I want to give you the floor for a few minutes here, Mr. Underberg.
Yeah, and I'll turn this into more of a platform for just, donations in general, if I can for a little bit. So like our family is no different. Every family's got, stuff happening,
Yep.
and we've got it too. And in this case, our stuff is multiple sclerosis. So, we have, my wife was diagnosed with it about 15 years ago. And you learn to live, you learn to adjust, you learn to pivot, and you learn to appreciate some of the little things that you didn't take advantage of maybe, or you didn't really appreciate earlier. So as we've kind of gone through this journey, one of the things that I've decided to do, and that my daughters are joining me, so Madison, Jackie, and Lauren are all doing this, is we're going to go up to Door County, and we're going to do something called an MS Challenge Walk, which is 50 miles over 3 days. So 20 miles day one, 20 miles day two, and then 10 miles on the last day. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's all with the intent of raising money to help with the treatment, find a cure, help all the regimens that are associated with MS. And yeah, if anybody out there is dealing with this or would like to give or would like to help, we have an MS Challenge Walk page online. And basically what you can do is I'll start here because I'm still trying to work out the easiest way to go about it.
Okay.
I'll probably put it on my Twitter account. People can follow that. It's
There you
just
go.
at Dan Underberg. But it's basically, you can try to Google, our team name is Jill Power. And you can just go Door County Challenge Walk MS and see if you can find something there, or just follow me online and do that. Bigger picture, and then we'll get back to sports, is really about whatever your thing is, whether it's something neurological, whether it's something on any level of health, mental health, physical health, whatever it is. But without trying to get, I do not mean this to be political whatsoever. The reality is that research dollars have been cut significantly. The events like these whatever your particular challenges are more important now than they have ever been, to be able to kind of move towards finding things that can help people with whatever their challenges. So if you have that ability to give, or if you have the ability to volunteer towards these things, to give up some time to help, then please do, because it may not feel like it, but you are making a difference. These little tiny donations, every little bit helps. And I didn't understand that until we found ourselves in this place.
Absolutely.
So that's my plea, if you want to call it that. That's my marketing outreach. We're happy to do it. We're excited to do it. We're all training for this. And yeah, you train for a 50-mile walk.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
you do that. So yeah, just give it some thought. And if you can do that, I will put that on at danunderberg.com, and you decide if you can help out.
All right. So our boy's going to put it at Dan Underberg on his Twitter account. So let's rally the troops. Let's rally the troops. Let's get over there. Click on the link once he puts it up, and then support, because everything that he said, what I would want to say right now, is going to be redundant. But let's go ahead and support our guy on the other side of the table. We pivot very quickly here and talk about some college basketball. The rankings, the preseason rankings, have come out this week for the Big Ten, and the Badgers are sitting at number 10 out of 18. And Charlie, I feel like it's sitting right about where they were last year going into the Big Ten season. I'm comfortable there, because there is something about Greg Gard. When there are high expectations, things don't always go well. When they underestimate the Badgers, that's when I think we surprise a lot of people, especially when we turn the physical calendar into January, because it takes time now when you're using the transfer portal to meld the group together. And like we saw last year, let's take the tournament out of the equation. From a regular season perspective into the Big Ten tournament, they were a good basketball team. And so to have the Badgers sitting at 10, I'm like, thank you. I'm very comfortable right there.
Yeah, but I also don't want to settle. Like, I get being very comfortable in that spot, but also this Badgers team proves time and time again that they end up being better than 10.
And that's where I'm excited about, because I think, again, when we hype them up going into the season, it never seems to live up. Keep me in the middle, because this won't matter.
Well, I hate being sad or having low expectations for my favorite teams. I want to go into a season and have high expectations for my team. And I think with that, when I see other people having lower expectations than that, that's disappointing to me, I guess.
Okay. And I get where you're coming from. But for me, it's almost like everybody else, like, we have high expectations as Badger fans, as Marquette fans, as UWM and UWGB fans. That's awesome. That's how we're supposed to be. Let the rest of the country sleep. Because, again, once we get to January and February, if we have the kind of season like we had last year, this, again, becomes irrelevant. The only storyline is, look at the Badgers. They're coming. We didn't expect it. Don't expect us to do anything. Let us just do what we do. As far as the Badger basketball program goes, as far as Marquette goes. I mean, Marquette this year, in that one preseason poll, they're thought to be the third best team in the Big East. That's high praise for a team that struggled last year. I like the idea, and this contradicts what I was just saying to you. I like the idea of somebody being excited about Marquette, but then I also get fearful of, then do we have too much onus on a lot of these early games when you're still trying to get the wheels in motion and the consistency with your program moving forward?
I get that. I also think, though, at the same time, like, when you have Marquette that high, I think us as Marquette fans watching last season don't have that same kind of expectation. So that's why we get fearful that they're not going to match what that is. I think if we went into this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, with where Marquette was at that point, you look at number 3 and you don't have that same reservation. I don't think. I think you go and say, oh yeah, number 3 is perfect. That's exactly where we should be. I'm happy about that. but it's because we have this now viewpoint of Marquette where, oh, they're really young. They're not at that same point as some of these other schools. 3 feels high. I think with Wisconsin, I'm at that point where 10 feels just low for what they've been able to do over the past few years. And that's with changing rosters, changing star players, because Greg Gard has just been able to make any transfer portal guy work. I think you need to go into this season and even nationally, they need to look at this team and look at what Greg Gard has done and say, you know what, they're better than what we've been putting them at because we keep putting them at the same spot.
Where do you want them to be? Where should they be?
I think closer to 6, top 6,
right.
somewhere in there.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think so too. And I hear what you're saying, because you feel like Michigan State with Izzo gets a bump.
Yeah.
And simply because, and granted, Izzo has accomplished more than Greg Gard. Michigan State has accomplished more than Wisconsin, but Wisconsin has been better, as you guys have been saying, that they've been given credit for. Yet, suffice without all the frustration of the NCAA tournament, they've been better. And yeah, I don't know that I'd go 6. I'd probably go 8. And 2 spots, big deal. But it's that number 10. It feels like this as a program should be better than a double-digit finish.
Listen, don't poo-poo going up to 8. I was 5 percentage points talking football. I was getting all excited about. So 2 spots. Real quick before we get to a break, Marquette heads to Canada this week. They'll play Calgary, Trinity Western, and Fraser Valley. Great article in JS Online by our friend Ben Steele, previewing some of the things he saw at open practice, which occurred this week as they got ready to make that trip. One interesting note for me was how underpublicized the Marquette trip was to Canada. I thought for sure that with all the hype around this team, we might get a little more publicity in the opportunity to watch this young group kind of advance and mature after what we saw last year. But nonetheless, they have games Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday with our friends to the north. We got to get to a break. On the other side of the break, we'll get to some headlines as we wrap up our number 1. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
your radio. It's the headlines. Tell me, have you heard it? Headlines. Read all about it, baby. Headlines. Headlines. Headlines.
Once again, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, it's College Sports Weekly, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Let's get to some headlines. First up, we learned this week in an article by On3, nice site, really not sarcastic whatsoever when it comes to college athletics, that Ward Manuel's tenure as AD at the University of Michigan will come to an end at the flip of the calendar moving into 2027. Obviously been a very turbulent time for Michigan athletics, and it sounds like they're getting ready to release the internal investigation that Michigan authorized to kind of go through after all of the things that have taken place with regards to life in Ann Arbor. And I think the fact that Ward Manuel is decided to step aside tells you exactly what's coming down the pike when we talk about Michigan athletics.
What I have read, guys, is that they found that the problems were not widespread through the athletic department, that it's really kind of only focused in two spots,
Shocker.
Again, the tail wagging the dog in the Michigan athletic department. But people weren't held accountable. Again, shocker, right? This has just been standard operating procedure there in Michigan. But those are your two biggest programs for the university, at least in terms of eyeballs on the athletic department. And when those two things are out of control, and they were out of control, okay, then yes, someone's got to pay for that. And when your athletic director can't get their arms around that, then it's got to go. It gives you a little bit of an appreciation looking back on the 10 years of Pat Richter and Barry Alvarez.
Absolutely.
They shut that stuff down really, really fast.
And the hundreds of other ADs at Division I programs around the country. I mean, Charlie, for us, I'm a little sad. What are we going to talk about? I mean, Michigan always gave us fodder with, Google glasses on the sidelines, encrypting plays, and some of the other things that have taken place. But I think it's a long time coming for Ward Manuel and what was taking place in Ann Arbor to dissipate and come to an end.
Does Dusty May's name get brought back up here now that we're at this point where, we're talking about these programs, and if there's a shot that he left right before Ward Manuel gets fired and now they're both getting investigated?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. All right, one more as we head our way to the top of the hour. It was reported this week, the University of Concordia of Wisconsin, their athletic director, Dr. Rob Barnhill, has passed away after a long and courageous battle with cancer. For 25 years, he served as a coach and athletic director, mentoring countless students at the university. Our hearts, our sympathies go out to the University of Concordia, Wisconsin, their athletic program, all of the students that are affected by this, and especially his family. We'll make our way to the top of the hour. We're back after a break.
basketball, football, baseball. From Division 1 to Division 3, it's time for College Sports Weekly with Don Macholis and Dan Underberg on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2, College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We're powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Don't forget, you can join in on the conversation on the Nicolay Law text line at 414-677-1250. Follow us on all of our social media platforms at Wisconsin Sports Radio. Shout out to our friends in Wausau at 93.9 The Game, and Green Bay Appleton at 99.7 and 1440 AM WNFL. Here in Milwaukee, 1250 AM, 105.7 FM The Fan, and in Duluth Superior at 710 AM The Game. Don Wachulis, along with the Professor Dan Underberg, Charlie Usen here for the next 60 minutes, wrapping up this week's College Sports Weekly program. We're going to get into the SEC as far as Media Week went. And what I love about this, at least, it's the precursor to the Big Ten. And the SEC and the Big Ten, let's face it now, are the driving forces within college athletics. And you always get great sound bites when dealing with both conferences, listening to the commissioners and the coaches and everything else. So what did we get from the SEC as far as to the contrast of my team is great, we're going to win, we've got great kids coming back, blah, blah, blah. But once again, it started with the SEC talking about potentially breaking off and doing their own thing. Charlie, this will be number 1 on the hit parade. Heather Dinich talking about that exact thing as far as the SEC breaking away. This clip courtesy of ESPN.
It's very real, and this is something that has been going on for months because SEC presidents and chancellors have been talking about this since about February when they met in Nashville to talk about options of self-governance if they cannot get federal legislation. I mean, that's where the conversations are. And you can look at the Big 12 and the Texas Tech incident with Brendan Sorsby as an example of what this means. Because when you're talking about breaking away from the NCAA, you're talking about making and enforcing your own rules. In that case, the NCAA wasn't able to enforce its own rules on gambling. So the SEC, and Greg Sankey will tell you, we already do make some of our rules and enforce them. But if they can't get help from the federal government, get some antitrust protection so that every time they try to make a rule, the NCAA, they don't get turned around and somebody sues them for it. That's what these conversations are about.
I don't know where Heather was giving her response from, but they were bumping in the background, weren't they? There was something going on in the background there. Anyhow, I think she summed it up, and we're going to hear a couple of clips from Nick Saban in a moment. But it's the idea, once again, Professor, yes, we're threatening to break away. We're threatening to be our own entity. But as she said in that clip, the NCAA's issue right now is they can't enforce their own rules. And again, Nick Saban will talk about this in a moment in some clips that we garnered once again from the Four Letter Network. The SEC, go ahead, break off, do everything that you want to do, but understand, I don't care what rules you put into play, without federal assistance, they're meaningless because everybody then runs to court. And let's face it, one of the things that we find in the SEC are judges that are very enamored with their particular alma maters, their particular schools, their particular programs. They embrace them, and they tend to rule in favor of situations that benefit their alma maters.
Yeah.
So, I see the wheels turning over there.
So here she is complaining that the NCAA, and rightfully so, cannot defend its own rules because of legal actions, right? So, and we need to have federal assistance in order for that to happen. Okay. So you're complaining about the NCAA not being able to do it, but then you're threatening to leave the NCAA once the government says we're going to help you out. kind of a thing.
And I want to interject real
Yeah.
quick. And what came out this week is the fact that now the Big Ten and the SEC are negotiating
Mhm.
with Congress about kind of taking that line about the Super League. Take that out of the
Yeah, you
bill.
got to take that out.
Take that out of the
Yeah.
bill, because if you take that out of the bill, we'll give you our support, but it still allows us the threat of forming a Super League, which is something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and when you look at that, let's go back to the reality of this, which is we can talk about legal issues, we can talk about the woebegone student athlete, we can do all those things. This is still about how do we generate the most cash, and how do you
Absolutely.
do that? That is through a Super League. That's just it.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm done. We'll wait till the next.
Here's Nick Saban. This is number 2, Charlie. Also courtesy of ESPN and Get Up, talking about if or what it would be like if the SEC left the NCAA.
Well, I think that we all should, step back and take a look at college athletics from 1,000 feet. I don't think it would be great for, the game itself if you took any conference that is a major, one of the Power Four conferences, out of the mix in terms of playing each other and competing for championships. And I think the only way you can do that is, look at college football, college athletics as a whole, and what's best for student athletes and their ability to compete against other good teams.
I think Nick Saban, Dan, walks a fine line. I think there's a part of him that sees where the future of college athletics is
Mhm.
going, while another foot is still entrenched in the old school approach of we're still dealing with college athletes. And I think we're dealing with college athletes in every sport, with the exception of potentially basketball, football, maybe hockey, depending upon where we're
It all depends on
located.
the university. Yeah,
Right.
Right.
And so I think when he talks, it's refreshing in some cases, and yet there's a part of him, I think, that is still entrenched in the old school approach, which I think have left a long time ago.
Yeah, I get where he's coming from. I do, and he's trying to be the voice of reason. We have a lot of people that are, take the 1,000-foot view. Nick, I think you need to be a little bit higher, but I get where you're going on this one. It's just he may be too, like you said, he's connected to the old school. He's still the coach,
Mhm.
right? And he's testified in front of Congress. He's done these things. He said some pretty agreeable things, but at the same time, when I look at this, when I think of any Power Four conference going, one Power Four conference by itself, even if it is the SEC, would fail at this, because when you look at these, even the SEC, we think, oh, the SEC. Well, there's a lot of programs. Well, not a lot, but there's a fair number of SEC programs that are not good at football. They're not good at baseball. They're not good at basketball. So you can't build something successful purely on the SEC.
And
Won't work.
it goes back to, Charlie, the regionality of it. There's greatness in regionality. I think the fact that you still have those games. Let's move into the Big Ten. That Wisconsin-Minnesota matchup. Those things are vitally important. However, you also want to see those games where an SEC team plays a Big Ten team, where we get Texas and Ohio State in week 0, whatever the heck that means. Those games are just as important. You're not going to get that when you're just playing within your own conference. And I don't care if you've got 18 or 20 teams. As Dan said, there's always going to be some that aren't to the level of what you have as, let's say, the top third goes.
And to what Dan was saying, without another conference, without more teams that give you that competitiveness, you're not going to be able to do that and survive. This feels very frustrating that they keep pushing all of this and talking like they don't need the Big Ten, because I want to wait till the Big Ten conferences and see what they start saying, because if they're going to speak the same exact way where they say, we can do this, we don't need the SEC, we can do this on our own, how close to on the same page are they? Because they can't be, like, other than saying they don't want this to be a Super League or be called a Super League,
Right.
whatever the hell that means for them. Like, that's so stupid to take that out. That's just, is that really going to change that much rhetoric about what you guys are doing right now? And to pretend like one is better than the other, where you guys know you need each other to do this, there's no way this is going to happen. I don't think either conference really wants this to happen, even though they keep threatening it all the time, pretending like this is the best route for them. I don't think they really want to do this because I don't think they know if the other side is in with them.
So, Charlie, you gave us a perfect segue, I think, unintentionally, in the fact that, Dan, you heard Sankey then with a lot of what people said around the country, almost to a T, what Charlie just said in maybe different terms, but the gist of what Charlie was just explaining get put out there, where we got to the end of the week and Sankey said, you guys just took this one line and you ran with it and you made it clickbait. And this isn't what it was, out of context. And now I'm hearing the 4-letter network like, yeah, everybody ran with it. It's out of context. Well, maybe it's because ESPN has the rights to the SEC now that they're backpedaling when their own reporters were discussing that very point. I think the pushback around the country is much like what Charlie just alluded to.
I know, I think so too, but let's go back to why was ESPN talking about it? Because that's what people are talking about.
And
that's
it's
where
money.
the interest is. And
Yes.
It's money. And you give people, you feed them what they're hungry for. And in this case, there was interest in this topic, and you just kind of let it, you let it simmer a little bit is what you
Right.
do. And you never turn that burner off all the way. You just let it sit, and then it's there when you need it, kind of a thing. And so we're going to get into 50 days,
right?
And we start playing. Then we're going to start talking about football again, and then all of a sudden that wonderful part of the season is going to be over, and then pretty soon we'll get through the portal, and then we get to the summer, and we'll be right back here talking about these things again. I think, do the conferences really want to do this? I'm kind of the 60-40 approach. 60%, no, they don't. But 40%, they've got to keep their eyes open. They got to consider, because as expenses rise, as salaries rise, coaches, players, whatever it is, as the demand goes up for different content, the only way that they can truly control that and squeeze the most cash out of that wet rag is to have their super conference where they are in control. So I don't think it'll ever be a way. They just don't want to deal with the administration of this whole thing, because guess what? If they have to administer this where they are the super conference, they're going to be dealing with the same shizzle that the NCAA is dealing with.
I thought you were going to have to hit the dump button.
I thought it was, too.
Nicely done,
He's a pro.
Daniel. He's a pro.
He's a pro.
pro's pro when it comes to that. Now, this will be a cut from Nick Saban, courtesy of ESPN and Get Up, talking, I think, about exactly what Dan's alluding to, but more from the NCAA perspective and why it's important that this Save College Sports Act gets passed, because some protection is needed with regards to rules and litigation.
Well, I think the key to the drill is we can come up with whatever rules we want, but litigation has got us in the position that we're in today relative to transfers, name, image, and likeness, paying players, collectives, all the things that have affected the game, in a good and bad way. So unless you make something a law, it can't be enforced. Everybody blames the NCAA, but they couldn't enforce their own rules because of litigation, and that's still happening. So to get Congress to put something together that maybe gives you some antitrust, protection in terms of protecting from being sued for everything you try to enforce. I think that's the reasoning behind all this. And I do think there's a lot of good people trying to make this happen. And I think it'll be good for college athletics as a whole, not just football, but college athletics as a whole, Olympic sports, women's sports, if we can get something like that done.
And that's the bottom line. And I listened to that, and I kind of threw that clip in, Dan, because, when we ask students to have, I'll say, an opinion or state something, back it up with something. We've been talking about this whole litigation component being a driving force as to why something needs to be done, as to why the NCAA can't do what its intent is, even though the schools sign up voluntarily to be a part of this organization. They consistently turn and thumb their noses because things don't go
The
necessarily.
players sign
their
up
way.
for it too. Like
Yes,
this
they
is
do.
what's so
Yes.
frustrating
Right.
is that the NCAA just lets this all happen. Like the NCAA gets these guys to sign up, the players, the schools, and all of this. And yes, they can't enforce their own laws or rules because of litigation, but then ignore the litigation. Like if I'm being frank with this, like you need to start fighting back more than you are, because right now the NCAA just feels like it keeps getting pushed down by other people that are allowing them to be pushed down. It's so frustrating.
The problem, I think, has been the fact that so much of this has happened in regional courts. And I don't know what the steps would be. My pay grade isn't high enough to understand what it would do to move this to a federal type of incident, where I think if you've got this legislation passed, it would automatically go there and take, again, the regionality out of it.
Well, and I look at this in the NCAA, and this goes back to resources. And again, this is an organization that I understand makes $1 billion a year on one tournament. I get it. But right now, part of the challenge is they're fighting battles on multiple fronts all the time, and maybe they have the money to battle it, but do they have the people? Do they have the ability to manage and to effectively coordinate what it is that they're trying to do so it all comes together? So I understand the criticism of the NCAA, but at the same time, how are they supposed to continue to fight and fight and fight and fight and fight? Where I go back to what Saban said is, or it was Saban. Sorry, I'm getting all confused. Is going back to this idea of how do you can, if you coordinate it, if you try to find a way that Congress comes in and kind of quote unquote saves the day, it saves the day for about 15 seconds because people sue against laws all the time.
And that's true.
Yeah.
However, I think, again, when we're dealing with a federal court, I think when the process goes through, the judges are a little bit different than what you find at the state level.
I agree, but this is where I think there's the hypocrisy in there from coach's standpoint. When you have a player that you want to have on your team, the guy that's going to make all the difference, he needs that 5th, 6th year. There will be attorneys.
Oh, I'm not arguing.
There will be lawyers.
I just think at the federal level, what we'll see is slightly different than what we're currently messed up with now. Now let's pivot. One last thing from Nick Saban as part of the SEC media days, and that's this. Nick was asked about the college football playoffs, and we constantly hear about expansion and so forth. There's something interesting that he proposes in this clip that I want to get your reaction to, once again, courtesy of ESPN and Get Up.
Well, I just think that there were 3 occasions where we played 15 games when I was coaching, and I thought 15 games was too many games for college players to play in a season. Now you can potentially play 17. So if we go to anything beyond 16, to me, you're adding games without eliminating conference championship games, which I think are venues that people really enjoy. So I'm kind of going for 16, or you could take the model where you could use the conference championship games as a wild card type of thing, and that's part of the playoff system. So that in effect would go to 20 without adding more games.
That last piece, and I don't understand how it would all come together,
Mhm.
but it was incorporating conference championship games into the playoff. Again, a wild card. I don't know if hypothetically, since we're talking about the SEC, Alabama is playing Georgia. Alabama maybe being the lower rated program wins, so they get the automatic bid. What happens to Georgia? Are they really out? Kind of a deal. But the idea of incorporating conference championship games, Daniel, to me is intriguing.
It is so complex. This is such a challenging problem. This is a little bit when we went back to the BCS and how do we coordinate the bowl games into this mix and do that so they don't lose the essence of what they are, because bowl gaming had been such an essential part of football for so long. I don't know. I don't have a good answer or a good response to this, simply because 16 is too much, and then he throws in we're going to 20, and how do you not have more games if you work in the conference championships? And because you're talking about wild card.
Right.
And then you're adding probably some type of buy into that situation. You're just extending the college season further. So I appreciate that he's trying to get creative on this.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, and he's using other ideas, but I this is kind of the pursuit of perfection that football has always gone through in college,
Mhm.
and we will never get there. We're just gonna have to find the best particular situation.
And Charlie, I just go back to the fact that making conference championships relevant. I think in so many of the scenarios that had been proposed earlier with regards to playoff expansion, it was in essence erasing conference championships. I like the fact that that SEC championship
It's
game
great.
to me
Yeah.
is must watch.
Mhm.
The Big 12 championship is must watch. Big 10 must watch. So somehow finding a way to make those games relevant to what we do with playoff or playoff expansion, to me, that was the biggest take out of what Saban said in that take.
Well, and I think the other half of the argument from the SEC and Big Ten, outside of the fact that, oh, we want control over our own rules at this point, is that they feel like they're giving up too big of a piece of the pie to everybody else when they have such competitive teams in their conference, both in the SEC and Big Ten, that if you were to make these conference championship games a bigger deal, I think that allows people to watch the SEC a little bit closer and say, I'm watching an SEC game in the college football playoffs. I'm watching a Big Ten game in the college football playoffs. That kind of sweetens the pot a little bit for those teams from the notability side of things.
Absolutely. And I go back again to something we talked about months ago. College sports right now needs a Pete Rozelle, someone who can sit everybody down and say, listen, as a unified body, we have the ability to make more money than what we would do if we separated. And Pete Rozelle did that better than anybody back in the early inception of the NFL. When you look at the New Yorks and the Los Angeleses, who could have easily broken away and made more money in the immediacy, to convince them that as a unit moving forward, you will make that plus more if we stay as a unified body. That will be the undertaking someone would have to do. I don't know who it is, and I don't know if it could be done, but somebody of a Pete Rozelle like who could get these people to come together and realize as a unified body, you will make billions of dollars as opposed to the immediacy of branching off and only making hundreds of millions, which sounds ridiculous because we're just now dealing with monopoly money.
I think what you get, I guess, worried about if you're one of these bigger companies just in the world today, I think a lot of people and a lot of companies are making exponential amounts of money, more so than they ever had in the past. So it's a lot easier to sell 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 20 years ago, even, that you can make more money in the future. Right now, when we're making so much money, it's probably easier to sell, hey, listen, we're going to crash. Like the world's going to crash a little bit. It's going to come back down to earth. You got to make as much money as you can now before that crashes. I think that's part of the problem, that a lot of these companies are looking at it with that mindset versus, oh, well, we can make more money later. When there's so much money now, how can you possibly make more money later?
No, you make a great point. I hate when you're the voice of reason. It's just that was a great point. All right, let's get to a break. On the other
we gotta
side
get
of the
to
break,
commercial now.
commercial now because I'm feeling bad about myself. But after we come back from the commercial, we'll check in with our friends at Bryan and Stratton. We'll talk to the head baseball coach there. Alex Tomter joins us on the other side. This is College Sports Weekly. We're powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
be illiterate and feeble, legally licked to go the ways of the weasel. The weasel. Pop, pop goes the weasel, the weasel. Pop, pop goes the weasel, the weasel. Pop, pop goes the weasel, the weasel. Pop goes the weasel, the weasel.
Welcome back in live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. It's College Sports Weekly, powered by the Potawatomi Sports Book. We're going to jump right to the Nicolay Law talk and text line, and we're going to bring in the head baseball coach at Bryan and Stratton. It's Alex Tomter. Good morning, sir. Good to have you on board.
Good morning, guys. Good to be here. We love our partnership with you guys, so I'm excited to be on.
It's great to have you. And, Coach, going through some of the things in getting ready for this morning, if there's anybody, I think, who understands what it's like to play baseball in southeastern Wisconsin, it's Alex Tomter, who was a head coach at Kettle Moraine, an assistant at MSOE, Brooks Central, played at Concordia University of Wisconsin back in the day, and now obviously working over at Bryan and Stratton. Negotiating southeastern Wisconsin in the spring for baseball has to have its own challenges in and of itself.
Oh, yeah. And it's year to year, you know. So this year we went through it, and it really wasn't that bad for us, which means next year is probably going to be a disaster. So it's fun. I always tell everybody, I'll put out a schedule for you, but that schedule is probably going to change 100%. So really, you know, there's a lot of challenges with it.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Dan.
This is not a promise. This is more of a recommendation.
Exactly.
Looking at over your bio, Coach, and one thing that really stuck out to me is spending time within the Pirates organization and coaching and video coordinating for low A ball. And then having the opportunity to understand the perspective of young men that are moving into the professional level compared to, what you've done in high school and college, guys that want to get into the professional level. What do you tell them when you're talking to your team right now, or you're talking to other teams in the past? What recommendation do you give to these athletes that aspire to play professional baseball?
Yeah, it's all about the work you put in. I got to see firsthand how early those professionals got to the stadium, and, low A ball at that time, there was a lot of 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. So it's the same age as I'm coaching here. But they kind of approach it in a more advanced way. And obviously a professional organization has everything that these guys need, but what is up to the player is the amount of work and the amount of time that you put in to kind of make your craft as good as it can be.
Coach, last year, 36 wins, a spot in the Region 4 championship game. Had to be just a special time with a special group of guys going through that 26 season.
It was such a blast. And we've always believed that we could get to that point. We've had some really heartbreaking losses in the playoffs my first few years. So to kind of see it come into fruition and see, like I said before, the guys this past year, they put in the work, they did the time, they did everything they needed to, and they were rewarded with such a great season and such a great run in the playoffs. It was a lot of fun. So
what do you do then? You spend a lot of time building up to this place where you can get through and you make a deep run in the playoffs. How then do you try to maintain that position and that presence, locally, nationally? So this is kind of now the expectation.
Exactly. And that's the exact conversation we had with our freshmen who are now going to be sophomores coming in. Doing it once is great. It was a lot of fun to be there, but making it a regular thing and showing everybody that it wasn't a fluke, kind of proving to everybody that this is who we are now and this is where we're going to be. That's what it's all about. So, we're about 2 or 3 weeks from, 45 to 50 guys moving into campus, and we're all going to have that expectation to be playing for a spot in the Junior College World Series.
Coach, we kind of went over your background leading into this interview, but your time at Kettle Moraine, your time at Brook Central, your time at MSOE, even as a player at Concordia University of Wisconsin, what is the underlying denominator from those experiences that you present to your team saying, listen, I've been around this game. I've seen many things. If you do A, B, and C, these are some of the components that will help lead towards success.
Well, I think for me, the key is just having worked, either played for or coached under some really great coaches. So my high school coach, Jeff Bigler, half my practices are just stealing what we did from him because he runs such a great practice. When I was at MSOE, Steve Sanfilippo was there, and we were kind of building that program up from being towards the bottom of the conference. And if you look at MSOE right now, they're at the top of the conference every year. So, I think us as coaches, we're always just kind of taking a little bit from each spot we've been at and then making that what our practices and what our games look like. So that's kind of my takeaway from all those spots I've been.
Coach, when a lot of people think about baseball right now, their reference point is Major League Baseball, and they've seen a lot of changes over the years from, positioning on the field to different skill sets to rule changes and those types of things. How has JUCO ball changed over the course of your tenure, or in general, just has college baseball changed since you've been coaching?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Major League product, things have changed at a rapid pace. Those things are just kind of starting to leak down into the college game. Kind of more the 4-year levels have the pitch clock and have all of those things that are helping to keep the game moving. Us at the JUCO level, we have it. It's more of an unofficial capacity just because of the budget that would go into putting the clock up and all of that. But overall, the game at our level kind of resembles what the Major League game used to be. There's still a lot of teams that are going out there. If you get a runner on first, they're bunting them over to second, things like that. A lot more base stealing, a lot more, aggressive base stealing. I always tell our guys, our style is we want to play like Pat Murphy's Brewers. So, that part of the game is still pretty genuine and still kind of holds up to what it used to be.
How does the budget component work into this thing? Because I have to imagine that the guys have to do a lot of things that maybe, let's say, a Division I program doesn't have to do with regards to grabbing a rake or, getting things situated as far as the field goes. And yet that can be such a team building type exercise that I think might be taken for granted by some.
Yeah. So in terms of grabbing a rake, and this is going to make the guys who played for me my first couple of years mad, but the guys on my team currently don't ever grab any rakes because we play at the beautiful Doc Hound Stadium.
Sure.
So that part of it is great, and that is definitely like a great thing that the school offers its athletes here is they take care of a lot of that stuff by giving us a good budget to spend and good places to play. But we definitely still have some of the the lower level old school feel. The thing I always think of is we go to Florida every year, and I think the majority of teams are flying nowadays, but we're still taking the bus down there. And that is where the camaraderie and the team building is built. The parents love it. The guys get to come together. They get to do karaoke on the bus, all of that stuff. So, we definitely have the best of both worlds in terms of that.
The guys get to do karaoke, but the coaches got to do too. What's your go-to song?
Oh man, they never want to hear me sing. When I always kind of help, there's always a couple of nervous freshmen, so I'll be right next to them, kind of making sure they're getting through the song. I would say if they asked me to sing, I would get out there and do "Since You've Been Gone" by Kelly Clarkson.
Wow, you gotta have
some range,
coach.
Yeah.
Dan, go ahead. Last one.
Well, you're looking, what are your goals? I think it's obvious that when you look into this upcoming season, the goal is to always kind of improve and win that next championship. But is there anything, I'll use a term like quantitative, like this is what we need to achieve to really be that next step in the program?
For us, that 40 win goal is going to come into play this year. I always kind of tell the guys too. So we go out and we play as hard a schedule as we possibly can. I have had the top 2 hardest schedule in JUCO in a few of these years. So sometimes the wins don't come early, but it sets us up for success late. So the win total isn't everything to me, but I always tell them, like, if we play long enough into the playoffs, if we get to a good spot, it's going to allow for our sophomores to get recruited at a really high level. And this past year, we had 5 guys go to the D1 level. And if we can stay on that track and keep pushing that number to 5, 6, 7 to double digits eventually, that's going to be a sign of a really healthy junior college program.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Coach, great talking to you. Enjoy the rest of the summer, and hopefully once baseball season is upon us, we'll have a chance to check in and see how things are going.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. It was a blast.
Absolutely. That's head coach Alex Tomter, the head baseball coach over at Bryant and Stratton. Last break of the show. When we come back, time to hand out some shovels. We're live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
I want to shovel the funk. I want to shovel the funk. I want to shovel the funk. I feel like shovel the funk. I got to shovel the funk. You want to shovel the funk? Do you want to shovel the funk? Then go ahead. Go.
One last time, we're live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sports Book. This is College Sports Weekly, and we now get to hand out some shovels. Charlie, you're number one this week. Go ahead, sir.
I think my shovel, I want to give it to both of you guys.
Uh-oh.
I think.
Well,
First, Dan,
wow.
I think that's an awesome cause you're doing. Walking 50 miles
thank
is
you.
insane. Like, I
Appreciate
don't think I could do that even over the course of 3 days. That's really cool. It's really cool that you're doing it for something that's close to home. I really commend that. That's awesome. I'm
Appreciate
going to be
it. Thank
supporting
you.
it the whole way. Don, shovel to you for filling in on the postgame show later today. right?
Absolutely.
That's going to be a lot of fun, you and Aaron Morse. So
Yes.
I appreciate you. We appreciate you as the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network filling in on there.
Wow. I got a shovel from Charlie.
A
Where's the
shovel.
award? Where is the award?
Got a helmet. I can give you another one of your helmets. It's up to you.
What we need to play, and I know this doesn't go out across the state, but that would have been a perfect time to throw in the Top Dog Law commercial that we heard in the last segment right there. Daniel, go to you, my friend.
Well, we're going to keep it on your side of the table a little
What
bit.
is going
Look
on?
at that pretty sparkly, shiny new logoed helmet. Man, that is nice. And if you're not watching on social, I get it, but we've got this. My partner over there likes to decorate helmets. We've done this in the past, and
Yep.
this one is
dropping it.
another level up, and we can't wait to share it with people. But that is a nice look, and let's throw that on and let's go play, because I like that look.
And shout out to Charlie, you and Sparky
Yeah.
yesterday who downed the helmets. After
Well, Sparky tried to don it. I wouldn't say what he did was donning. Mine was on my head fully. Sparky's kind of right in the middle. Didn't fit too well. Pretty sure they're the same size helmets. So
well,
take that as you
Need
will.
that.
if the bat phone rings, you know he's listening right
Exactly.
now. All right, my shovel coincides with the soundbite. Now, I think there has been a lot made about the SEC this week, and rightfully so. They had their media hype going on Monday through Friday. We get the Big Ten next week. We'll have a ton of sound from the Big Ten media escapade that takes place. I wonder what posh resort they're going to go to have their Big Ten media hype week go through. And one of the things that happened during the week is Coach Orgeron from LSU,
Legend.
just a legend, was speaking and was asked about when he got fired. And Coach O gets my shovel for this soundbite right here.
I'm so grateful of my time for LSU. That was my opportunity. You know, coaches got a shelf. Some coaches got 50 years. Some coaches got 12. Mine was 6. Good. I got to tell you, we had a meeting. Say, Coach, things are not going well. Brady Charles can see that, brother. And they were good. And Scott Woodward is a friend of mine today. Really, really, a lot of respect for the way they handled me.
So what's next?
Well, I got to tell you this, though. Say, Coach, you got $17.1 million on your contract. We're going to give it to you. I said, what time do you want me to leave and what door you want me out of, brother?
So Coach O gets my shovel because it's a breath of fresh air to hear a coach say what he just said, which I think honestly is said by a ton of coaches when that moment happens. Yes, it's a gut punch. Nobody goes into a job giving it their all, wanting to be fired. But when they look at you and say, I'm going to give you $17 million, I thought Daniel was a breath of fresh air to hear him say, what door, what time?
and let me just put it out there. I will also say those same words for $17.1 million. Absolutely.
Right.
What door, what time? I'm ready to go.
Well, especially after you just coached one of the greatest teams of all
Yeah.
time in college sports history. Like, yeah, sure. I'm down in the history books for the rest of my life for all time. Yeah, I'll take $17 million on top of that.
I can go into any establishment in the Bayou and never have to crack my wallet, even though I just put $17.1 million in the bank account,
Mhm.
because we won a national championship. And because we won a national championship, you're still outed in a state that believes it should win the national championship every single year. Lane Kiffin, good luck, because you've got your work cut out for you. I don't care what you have on paper right now. As we were talking about earlier, we can project things, right? We went through the whole Badger schedule. There are so many factors that come into play. Before we close up shop this week, I know we still have a couple of minutes. Dan, you have it on your
I do.
Twitter.
I finally pulled it off.
The
Yeah.
artist formerly known as Twitter. You have it on the account because we want the College Sports Weekly crew that's out there on Saturday mornings to jump on board and support our guy over there. So once again, go.
Yeah, folks, if you want to be able to help, and we'd appreciate it if you can, go to @danunderberg.com, scroll whatever you got to scroll, and find my post with the at Door County MS Challenge Walk. It's a 50-mile walk to support research and everything to fight this stupid disease. So if you are willing to help us out with that, that's wonderful. If you want to help out something else, please do that.
Absolutely. Well said, my friend. All right. We have reached the conclusion of our fine program here on a Saturday. Our thanks to Alex Tomter, head baseball coach over at Bryan and Stratton, for joining us. And thanks to you, as always, for tuning in on a Saturday morning and making us part of what you do in bouncing around, cutting the lawn, whatever it is. We definitely appreciate your support. For the Professor Dan Underberg, Charlie Usen, I'm Don Wachillis. Again, thank you. This has been College Sports Weekly. We're back in 6 and 22 and see you tonight after the Brewers win against the Rockies on the Baseball Postgame Show. Have a good week.